Hi, I'm Josh Bowman. This is Aaron Newman. We're from Qumulex, and we'd like to welcome you to our second episode of Qumulex Radio. The first one went so great, we did not get canceled. We are still on the air and so glad to be here. So in this episode, we've been having conversations about structured cabling. And, is that important enough in the integrator world? My background as an integrator, I actually was multidiscipline. So I did telephone, AV, security, IT, but also was really heavily involved in the structured cabling world. If you're not familiar, that's the whole concept that these are end-to-end systems, your connectors, plates, panels. They should match up to the proper type of cable, whether it's Cat 6, 5E, Cat 6A, whatever it is. That there's, standards by EIA, TIA, and BICSI as far as labeling, certification, all those things. So I always took that very, very seriously. And, many, many years ago, when kind of branched also into security a long time ago, my experience at first was that my security technicians were not as interested in this concept. And, I just wonder what we're seeing out there. Has that changed? Does the security world really see the importance of it now? Or am I just really annoying and none of this matters at all?
No, I mean, structured cabling, it has, there's very significant importance to it. Just as you were talking about certifications, it wasn't even that long ago when, me and you were on a trip and, I personally at the time, I didn't really understand the difference between, like a riser cable, plenum cable. I didn't understand the different jacket types until you, told me that story about, those individuals that were in that hotel. There was a small fire in an area of the
Mm-hmm.
hotel and it was quickly extinguished. And, I don't even think it raised the alarm to get people out of bed, but
It was
yet,
in Vegas. I think it was the
yeah.
MGM casino. There was renovation on one floor, and in an air return plenum type ceiling. It actually takes air in one area and kind of cycles it to another area. And a standard PVC jacket. Of course, PVC is highly toxic. So if you talk to a fireman, a lot of, firefighter, a lot of people die actually from the smoke inhalation before the fire would even get them. And a lot of it is all this plastic we have that, can knock you out. It's very toxic. So yeah, they're just kind of sleeping in bed. There's really no fire on their floor. But there was some type of an electrical fire that started overnight on a floor where there was construction and it killed everybody. So, they came up with this concept. It's like a 2x2 compound that DuPont came up with where it's not nearly as toxic when it burns. So that's kind of like that plenum versus PVC, which hopefully all the installers out there are well aware of because that is a fire code. As a former member of the NFPA committee, um, that's an enforceable code. That's not just one of those things that are suggested. But yeah, there's all these little nuances, all these little things to know. But a big thing to me was always the performance. So we're talking about an unshielded twisted pair cable, a UTP cable, which is your typical 5E, Cat 6, and all that you see. There's a lot of engineering that goes into the pair twisting because you want the signal to arrive at an exact point in time, and that's called your delay skew. And so when you crank up the cable, when you have too much of a bend radius, when you have interference with it, if you don't terminate it properly, you really affect all of that. So, you have your performance, and we're talking video, here. So, we're talking larger data packets, and the quality of it is super important.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of audio in our industry. Of course, you're doing IP phones and all of that. That quality is very important. And maybe I'm out of touch. It's pretty encouraging to hear that more and more people, because we've had this conversation. You said a lot of like a lot of our Qumulex partners, they really get into structured cabling. That's something they offer and they value. So that's good to see. But you want the performance to be there. And man, when there's a problem, if you don't know, if you don't have an as built, if things aren't labeled, if you didn't test, I mean, the whole idea was, we've installed it, we've certified it. There's no moving parts.
Absolutely.
So unless somebody got up and did something in the ceiling or something really wild happened, most of the time, if you tested and certified that cable with your Fluke certifier, you know the cable's not the problem. And it really
Absolutely.
eliminates a lot of your troubleshooting time.
No, I mean, structured cable experts in themselves are very vital to our field. I believe we couldn't do what we do without them, because there have been instances where, things like improper, cable terminations, or, maybe just like you said, having certifiable results at the end of a project that says, hey, I might only be using 2 of these fiber pairs, but the rest that are in this box, I know are certified, good to go for future expansion. So there's a technical component, that I find very valuable, and not only that, but the industry as a whole is still evolving. It's kind of funny, like I'm not going to name brands or anything, but there was just a pretty recent development that seems to be taking off, where it was a development in cat cable, and what this product offers is the ability to extend way past that 100-meter limitation. It's I can't remember what the figures are, but I know it's like maybe 4 times the cost of regular cable. But just having a box of that in the back of your truck, should you run into that one off pole or what have you, that just needs a little bit extra range without putting in a mid span or what have you, you're able to do that. So yeah, there's still advancements taking place. Obviously network speeds are getting faster and faster, more cable technologies and SFPs, all these things are advancing. And so yeah, I mean, it goes hand in hand with their industry. And yeah, I'm happy to say that there's a lot of our partners who specialize in structured cabling and have maybe worked as a sub in a project, and then decided, hey, I could be, installing these products. I could do this as well. And they're growing their business by, adopting products like ours. And, then they're essentially becoming, integrators at that point. And yeah, it helps them, helps us. They're able to reuse that knowledge and build a business. So
Yeah, it seems like a long time ago there was, a lot of your integrators, whether it was like telephone or audiovisual or security, naming ones that I know, of course. Seems like a lot of them would actually subcontract, that cabling piece out, and then they would just kind of come in at the end and hang the equipment. I mean, do you think that's changed a lot? I mean, it seemed to me when I was still an integrator, which is going back over a decade now, but I
would
feel like
say
that was
that
changing.
in some cases it has, but in others it has. I would say on the larger projects, no, that kind of bringing in the specialist mentality still
Yeah.
exists, because at the end of the day, they may not have the specialized equipment to certify and print reports on all that. And I know the company I used to work for when I was in integration, yeah, absolutely, we didn't have that equipment, nor could we terminate and splice fiber, nor did we have like any of those specialized tools or have the certification. So I would say there's still that specialist need for sure. But
Tip from Uncle Josh: if you're doing fiber, go get yourself a inexpensive fusion splicer.
yeah.
You save yourself a lot of trouble.
So they're at Home Depot now, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, I started when I was really young with the family. I think I started off on like AT&T Lucent anaerobic fiber connectors. So that was like the epoxy, and then you had the 3 different levels of polishing paper. It looked like sandpaper,
Yeah.
but I was told it was special and not just sandpaper.
Right.
And was definitely more expensive. And then you do like an air polish for the last one, and it was like a work of art. And
No,
2 hours later,
absolutely.
you were off to the next one. Man, fusion splicer, you take a pigtail with the connectors you want on it, splice, put it in, strip, put it in. I mean, and it was almost like better than before you made that connection. I mean, you almost increased, your throughput. You kind of
Uh,
measure that dB drop,
Absolutely.
but
Yeah. cost efficiency has changed a lot because
Yeah.
now with these modern products, I know you and I were discussing this later, earlier, that nowadays it's like you just really crudely cut the glass, and now you have all these specialized connectors with gel and epoxy ends that fill in those imperfections. And so you're literally just cutting, stripping back a little bit of jacket, and you're just bringing these two pieces together and letting them cure, and then away you go, you're on to the next one. So it's like there's definitely a lot of advancements there. But not only that, there's a lot of expertise that still comes into play. I won't say from a, definitely from a, physical component standpoint when you're actually doing the splicing and fusing, but not only that, there's a part of, expertise that comes into play when you're scoping out, security systems. And,
Right.
I think a big part of structured cabling in my mind is, setting up a robust infrastructure so that, you're not having to add or, change in terms of like scalability. You're not having to repeat efforts, and you're really looking for that. Maybe it costs a little bit more upfront, but it's going to lead to longer term savings. Like, for example, rather than running, I can't remember what the fiber bundles are anymore off the top of my head, but let's say you're running 8 strands, and just for a little bit more money, you could run 16 for a rough example. And
Yeah.
have
I usually run in 6s.
Got it. Okay. See, I
6 or
couldn't even
12.
remember. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, there's like you said, there's in the beginning of the call, there's a whole of professional organization out there. I don't think that will ever be replaced, with keeping up with compliance and standards, cost efficiency, learning the newest, latest, greatest products and means and methods. And, then obviously just that expertise that comes into play, just like, with our previous episode talking about integrators and the value they bring. I think it really all comes down to, like experience and bringing in that expert to kind of advise you, like what's the the best fit for this project, or give you the best solution. Yeah.
Adds a lot of value. And again, it's kind of like the base layer of your network and everything that rides on it, security equipment and otherwise. So knowing that works and knowing where everything is, and not having to chase your tail and figure out where things were terminated and if they were done right, I mean, it just saves you a lot of time.